It's always fascinating to talk about leaders. We often go into a group and we say, name the great leaders, Gandhi, great leaders in industry and politics and religion. And we say, wow, these were great men and women who influenced the world. And then we say, name the leaders who influenced you. And it often changes the discussion. My mother, my father, a mentor, a first boss. And those leaders who influenced our lives, who shaped who we are and what we do, became not only coaches in how we behave, but mentors in how we think.
Thank you, Dave, for taking this time out for us. So today's main topic is leadership's role in recognition. We've spoken a lot about rewards and recognition, the important role it plays in driving values, behavior, connecting to engagement, productivity, and business outcomes there. While we have touched upon the role of leaders, I'd like to just pick that up a little bit more and dig deeper into that a little bit more today. There and I have some doubts around what are leaders doing in this space. So maybe a very basic question. How important is the role of leaders in creating the right systems of rewards and recognition? What can they do? Let's start off with that. Yeah.
Partha, it's always fascinating to talk about leaders. We often go into a group and we say, name the great leaders,
Mhm.
Gandhi. And I don't want to get into current political leaders because there's always a debate, but
Yeah.
great leaders in industry and politics and religion. And we say, wow, these were great men and women who influenced the world. And then we say, name the leaders who influenced you. And it often changes the discussion. My mother, my father, a mentor, a first boss. And those leaders who influenced our lives, who shaped who we are and what we do, became not only coaches in how we behave, but mentors in how we think.
Mm.
And then you begin to say, so how did they do it? And I've loved our discussions on recognition. Using the concept of recognition, they recognized us as individuals.
Mhm.
They knew who we were. I don't know if you had a mentor who shaped your thinking. I did as a student. He recognized my unique gifts and talents, and he encouraged me to pursue my pathway, not his, so that I could do the things that would be meaningful to me. Sometimes I think recognition, we think that may be a trinket. It may be a statue on the wall that I've got or a little plaque or something. I think the most powerful recognition is just recognizing who you are as a person and who you hope to become and encouraging you along that pathway. I'm curious, did you have a mentor who did some of that for you?
I didn't have a mentor specifically. I've learned from a lot of people, but now when you're saying that, suddenly the thing which flashed in my mind was I was in the ninth standard. So we have like this exams where it goes beyond the school at that stage. I remember one of the teachers just walking from class and said, "Hey, Partha, I want to speak to you something." And she called me outside and she said that, I have been observing you for so long. You have this great potential to do this thing. I was saying, like, why suddenly? I mean, I've known her for like 10 years, and why suddenly she's coming out? But now when I think about that stands out, and when I took my children, my wife also to meet her, a couple of years back, and I told this incident, okay, that she came out. Did it change my final results? Maybe it didn't in the exams, but having someone recognizing you, okay, I would have maybe done the same thing, but it's felt so good that she
Oh,
actually recognized me out of those 60 people or people there. I mean, yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, how are my parents recognizing? To recognize me for the right behavior. They, of course, also have the stick, enough stick there. But, whatever they encouraged me, and particularly the mentors, I totally align with you on that. Yeah. True.
and I think it's not always the big things. That was a
Yes.
quiet conversation. My mentor, I took a course from him. His name is Bonner Ritchie. And he said, there are no papers required. And I thought, this is a good course. But he said, go study organizations. Go look at where you live, where you work, where you play, where you worship, and see how the organization affects your life. And then we read novels, and we were supposed to write about the organization in the novel. He captured my imagination. I wrote a 10-page paper every week for 15 weeks. And he
And
called
he
me in
just,
and he
yeah,
said, Dave, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to law school. And he said, don't go to law school. You love organizations. Continue. And I took another course from him. And it wasn't, he just recognized my passion and then he encouraged me along my path. Now, let's take that principle to leaders in organizations today. I'm assuming you've not met the Prime Minister of India, that he's not given you personal feedback,
yeah,
but he's an important leader, and that what he and other political and economic and social leaders do is critical. But those leaders in our lives personally shape how we think about ourselves, and it's the recognition that they know who we are. Your mentor, your teacher, she knew you. She'd seen you for 10 years. She exuded confidence in you. She recognized your potential. And even that little quiet conversation has shaped your life so that you take your children back to see her. Anyway, that's the message. How do you institutionalize that
exactly.
in a company? That's the challenge. That's one of the challenges.
And that's actually, that's what I was just noting down. You can do it at an individual level. Okay. Beyond that, how do you institutionalize? And I go back to your culture tripod thing which you talked about last time.
Um,
Systems to be in place, right, to institutionalize this thing. It's not just the leader going, and I mean, leader can individually go to maybe 10 people, 20 people, 50 people, but beyond that, how do they institutionalize these things? What kind of systems can they do it? I'm not sure that there's been enough, work in this space. I mean, you'll know better, but have you seen examples of, putting these systems in place?
a little bit. It begins by saying, one, what those leaders do to make others better matters. It's a piece of business success. So you've got to recognize that leaders who give recognition, who give feedback, who empower others, whatever term you want to use, they're important to our company.
Mhm.
That's a recognition. Two is to begin to say that it's not a leader, it's a shared leadership. And we love to separate the leader is the individual, your teacher, my mentor, the CEO, the CFO. But how do you distribute that among all leaders? Leadership matters more than leaders. Third is to say, what are the things that leader does? Not just their personality. So it wasn't just your teacher and my mentor had a great personality, they cared. But what are the behaviors? They observed, they shared, they gave feedback, they gave recognition. So you say, here's the behaviors of leaders who empower others through recognition. That preamble, it matters. We want to distribute it. Here's the behaviors. Then we can put it into systems. We hire against it. Here's the behaviors we look at when we hire someone. We don't want to just hire someone for technical skill, but the behaviors being able to empower others, to observe, to listen, to give positive feedback. We promote people. Those leaders who do these behaviors are more likely to be promoted in our company. We provide financial incentives. Those leaders who do this may get more of the bonus. If our range is 0 to 7% with an average of 3, they'll be higher on that. We share their stories. We build communication platforms to highlight those leaders who not only get results financially but get results behaviorally by empowering others. We do everything we can to the system, staffing, training, compensation, communication. We build those systems that amplify those behaviors. And I think when we do that in an organization, it's no longer then about your teacher. It's about you now modeling the behavior she did with others. And I think you can institutionalize it. The teacher I refer to, named Bonner Ritchie, it's so fun to look at the genealogy chart of the people he influenced. I'm on that chart as a first generation. I am now influencing the second generation. And because I'm getting old, there's a third. Your teacher influenced you, first generation. you're influencing your children because of her, and then they'll influence. And I think those leaders create dendrograms or genealogy charts that begin to institutionalize what we do. But there's a preamble. This matters. We want to
Mhm.
distribute it. We now get the behaviors. What do we see that that leader does? It's not just personality,
Mhm.
although personality is important, but it's a behavior. How often did you we talked before about I love to send notes to people who do a good job. I'm in my office. I did this on another interview. I held up a little note card, and I sent a couple out this week. Um, I love to send them to young people. I love to send them to their mother. I talked about that before. I am modeling the behavior of my mentor, and I hope we can begin to foster that. So, can it be institutionalized? I hope so. I hope so.
No, and it's a very simple thing which you talked about, right? I mean, it's that whole spawning those, you influence this five, the paid forward kind of a thing which is there, right? So you influence certain people as a leader, and those five people, I mean, seeing your behavior does it. So of course, leading by example. I mean, everything can fall apart if the behavior of the leader itself, the topmost leader in the tree. Is not there. I mean, if that person is not recognizing that, whatever systems you put in place, I mean, how do I care? I mean, Partha doesn't recognize anyone, so why should we have that in this? So make sense on that, and I'll sorry, you want
No, I was going to give I'm in my office, and so I have pictures behind me of people who I think have done that. Martin Luther King was an American activist who followed the work of Gandhi,
okay.
and I think today people are trying to do some of the things he advocated. Sheikh Zayed, the UAE,
Mhm.
I think his principles and values of service and commitment get populated. One of the most interesting is this one. It's a picture of my father. My father, and I'll tell a quick story how he, I hope, transferred that to me, and it came true today in a different setting. My father retired at 55. He was a government employee. He built campgrounds and a forest ranger and worked with people. And he decided to begin in his retirement what he called a bread run. So he would go to a grocery store and pick up day old food, day old bread, day old fruits and vegetables, and take them to the homeless and those in need throughout the city where we lived in Kansas City. So every day, 5 days a week, he'd drive his little truck. I have a picture of my father with his truck, and he'd go to the stores and pick up food and give it. I used to not enjoy that bread run because every time I visited, we had to go out and haul the food around. At his service, there were hundreds of people who said, "Your father gave willingly." I think that transfer of knowledge, my father transferred to me and to my spouse and our hopefully our children a commitment to give back. My wife just got asked, and it's timely because this is so timely, and the value of mentorship. She's been asked to work with a group who are serving the homeless. The city where we live and around the world, there are homeless. A group is trying to figure out how do we help the homeless. And this morning, my wife said, "I wonder if we could help them do bread runs. If we gave trucks, maybe the homeless could go to the stores, pick up the food, not for themselves, but to build a kitchen, to give to the groups that are helping others. And maybe doing what your father did years ago might be passed on to the homeless and it begins to be distributed." And I think some of that is the recognition that we get by observing leaders who do well. So that's an aside story that I haven't shared before. Um, but
Very
it's a
important story, and a very important story. So I don't have any doubts that good leaders, and many of the leaders become good over time. There, good leaders understand that they are being copied. Okay, they are affecting a lot of people, and they show the right kind of behaviors. At least, I think the point which you made earlier is about institutionalizing it. Okay, so we see that culture. I think in the last chat we had, we talked about how culture is one of the top priorities almost year after year after year. Culture, and they do certain things around it. Okay, defining the values, defining the behaviors outside in what the framework which you gave. So those things people are doing. I think where we see, okay, from, because we are in this industry of rewards and recognition, is they're not putting enough efforts in the systems per se. Okay, I mean, once they have the define the values, one day that is also part of the system. They're defining it. Okay, they're doing it, but how do you propagate it faster? How do you make it mass instead of just your next layer kind of thing? Okay, that's where we see it, and I'll correlate that with something. For example, this whole rewards and recognition space. Now, Gartner says less than 15% companies in the US have some systems in place for rewards and recognition. They have the rewards part of it. The focus has been so much on the rewards, we have missed the forest for the woods. Okay, we've just kept on giving the best watch, the best label there. I know we just made sure that the trophy which was given to you arrived in 3 days exactly, without any problems, without any breaking thing. We haven't focused on what the impact which has happened, and I don't know why. Okay, I mean, I have a hunch why it hasn't happened, because sometimes, I mean, I'm going on a slightly monologue here. Just giving you the context.
Why do you think it's not happened?
Yeah, so I think everything gets picked up. Leaders also see and follow what's going around them. Okay, and also vendors play a very important role in creating that space. Okay, so that's one thing. So I'll tell you where the vendors, our space vendors, make money on the catalog.
Yeah.
Okay, if it's on the catalog and not on the software as a service, where will my incentive be? I'll say, okay, forget about those things. I'll just give you the catalog. Okay, we'll give you the best pricing. We'll give you the best servicing there. Now, if, for example, if Microsoft or Google had picked it up in terms of they are trying to sell this solution, I'm pretty sure a lot more leaders would have put those systems in place. Okay, because they are the players. I mean, they can create any space which they want there. The second, reason what I feel is that the ecosystem was not there in place. Okay, you need certain things. Okay, some ideas, I don't know if it's genuinely, Bill Gates had said that there, but he said we overestimate the impact in the short term, underestimate in the long term, the impact of anything we do. So this system started building up, but the ecosystem, when I mean the ecosystem, is making it very user intuitive. Okay, making it very easily able to do do that recognition there. Today you have tools like Microsoft Teams, you have mobile applications, which just makes it very easy. Okay, otherwise I'll just like forget about it. I'll just go and talk to the person and tell him that, great job done, or I'll just send a mail to that. Those things are now falling into place, and the catalog, which was the bread earner for all these vendors, that has now become a commodity. Okay, so we see the vendors also now trying to give this value added services, if I may say so, I mean, or these additional services, because catalog is commodity. They can replace someone, and they can replace me, they can put in anyone in the catalog. So if that main source of revenue is under threat, then vendors are also now saying that, okay, we'll provide you these systems, these are the additional things which are there. So I think, enough noise has not been created so far. And secondly, the ecosystem was not there. Now it's falling into place, is I believe what's happening now.
Can I play back what I heard, Partha? And this is I'm learning, so I'm learning with you and from you. An A and a B. A, we've got to recognize the value of recognition. That recognition is not just a social agenda, it's also an economic agenda. We do good to do well. We do good recognition and leadership so that we do well with our performance financially, customers. And I think people are beginning to intuitively see that. B, how do we then institutionalize it? I heard you say two things. A, it's not an event, it's a pattern. It's not a product, it's a relationship. The catalog is an event. I can do a check. I did a catalog, I did a little card, and I have no more obligation. That's not what we're after. It's not a catalog, it's a mindset. It's not a product, it's a relationship. It's not an event, it's a pattern. We've got to see it as something ongoing. And that's B1. How do we institutionalize? B2, you called it an ecosystem. I think what the catalog gives us is something we can do. And in the
Mhm.
recognition area, my sense is we need to have a topology. We've talked about taxonomy.
Yeah.
Here's what we can do. Let me propose one. 1A. We can help people have a better task at work.
Yeah.
We can help people recognize, and there's three things in the research on high performing teams. They can have an identity where they're working and have an image of who they are. We can recognize their identity at work. We can recognize their ability to learn. They have variety of work. We can recognize that. We can recognize significance. So, task identity, task variety, and task significance. We can do those things. Another thing we can do is positive and affirming feedback. We can
Yeah.
let people know.
Yeah.
Feedback should be feed forward. Marshall Goldsmith. It's about building success. And the other thing we can do in our topology is give people agency and autonomy. Let people feel like they are in control of their work. The research on high performing teams talks about those three things: the task, the feedback, and the autonomy. Really create a recognition system, and that becomes the ecosystem. Anywhere in the ecosystem, we're going to try to weave those things in to our processes. And when we can do that, I think then recognition, A, is valued, B, it's not an event, it's a pattern, and then maybe C, it's part of an ecosystem. And we can give people things to pick, not a catalog, but a mindset, not a product, but a relationship. And when we can do that, I think hopefully it begins to happen. And we need to find great leaders who do it. I mean, it's hard because many of the great leaders may not have done it. Stephen Jobs was not always gifted at that, although he was at the end of his career. A quick Stephen Jobs story: he was hard driving, demanding, tough. Got a heart attack, the stock went down. Came back, got a heart attack, the stock went down. One of the last things he did, he would always introduce a new product at the trade shows.
Yeah.
One of the last products he introduced, he said, "I'm Steve Jobs, here's the new product." And then he had stand behind him the physicians and nurses who saved his life. And he said, "I want to thank them
Yeah.
for my
Yeah.
being here today." And then he had another team come out, the next generation leaders at Apple, 8 or 10 of them. And he said, and this is what I call, he transferred his leadership equity. He transferred his equity, his goodness as a leader to that team. He said, "They are the future." That, I think, begins to institutionalize it. And I think Jobs did that. I mean, his successors, very different style, but they've tried to carry on some of the legacy that he had.
Absolutely. No, and I'll just my last thoughts on rewards and recognition. Of course, I am biased because I am in this business there, but I think we have been trying to measure a wrong ROI. Okay, so for example, if I do this rewards and recognition system, will the employees stay with us? Okay, will I be able to retain them? I think in today's environment, you should not be thinking about retaining them. If they will, I mean, there are lots of factors which affect a person. I mean, they might just want to move to a different city, because the weather is too cold in Michigan, so you want to move to a different city. So all those kinds of things might be there. But as long as they are in the job, and in one of our previous conversations, I said, as long as they're married or they're in a relationship, they should be in love. Okay, so
I
engagement is the
love it.
ROI,
I love it. I love
not
it.
not retaining people. Okay, so oh no, I mean, I still have a 10% attrition, so this doesn't help me. No, during the time when they were there, they were very engaged there. Actually, I am sometimes, I hope in our company tomorrow we can have just like the PayPal mafia, like we have 20 people who are actually forming up companies. That would be a bigger legacy for us, rather than creating our own company there. The second thing, sometimes the things are so obvious, okay, that people forget about it. Okay, just step back and think about any recognition, a simple, Anshuman is helping me, Prasanjit is helping us in this whole doing this webcast there. In your first or second episode, you actually praised Prasanjit, even though he was not on the screen there. And he was so happy after that, right? It's just a word. It didn't cost you anything. Okay. And it was genuinely something which you appreciated, that help there. That has had a bigger impact than maybe giving him $100. Okay. So I think it is so obvious. people work for recognition. Of course, the hygiene factors need to be taken care of. After you do that, people work for recognition. You get a good word. You asked me in the beginning, what was the good thing there? Just because my customer said, hey, we are doing great, we should do something more about this, I'm just happy. It was a good day for me there, right? And so I think it's become so obvious sometimes that we like, all right, okay, it's taken for granted. We don't need to put any systems in place. If I need to recognize, I'll just go walk up there. If you want to like really scale that up, you need the systems in place, and that's where the rewards and recognition systems come into play. Yeah, I have given my sales spiel there. Yeah.
And my comment would be amen, amen, and amen. Amen. The ROI of business is return on intangible, not return on investment. And recognition is an intangible value. You can't see it as readily, but it's there. The job of a leader, amen, number two, is to use his or her power to empower others. When leaders use their power to empower others and make them better, they succeed. And number three, events don't sustain, institutional systems do. That it should outlive you, it should outlive me. The thing we talked about with our parents and our mentors, their behaviors become ours. We change them. I'm not doing exactly what my parents did, of course, but we institutionalize those things through the rewards and recognition that we provide. And I've said Prajanit's name wrong every time, so you've got to tell me how to say his name right.
Prasenjit.
Prasen,
Prasenjit. Yeah.
Prasenjit, thank you. I recognize you, and I recognize you, Partha. My test of a leader, my final comment, and I've used it before. When you leave an interaction with that person, do you feel better or worse about yourself? That's my coaching to every leader. Partha, we've had 6 discussions. I have never left a discussion without feeling better about myself. Thank you.
This- and
That's
the
the
same
leader.
is with me. I loved our discussions. I think it has been a great learning. You have initiated certain thoughts in my mind, which hopefully I'll be able to explore further on that. But thank you, Dave. Thank you for all the time, and hopefully we will catch up again on further discussions around this. I will definitely share some more information with you. I would love to have your thoughts around that.
Open to help. And if you
Yeah.
happen to be in the United States, which is not often, but in Utah, which is even less often, I can promise you a very good dinner and hospitality. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take that up on that. All right.